Now I'm going to introduce your long 3 assignment. This is Emulate as Reinvention. In general, the idea here is that we're going to look at a series of artists, and I want you to choose one of those artists to emulate and to look at their work, find something about their work that you are particularly drawn to and want to try to recreate on some level. The reinvention part of this is to instill the idea that you can look at these artists and emulate what they're doing in a variety of ways, but then reinventing it as your own. So it's not you just making their work, you're making your own. Now, I have a video introduction that you're watching currently. I'm going through the slide presentation that you'll have available as well. Keep in mind, again, I have multiple sections of this course, so these due dates might look different in your classroom, but in general, this will give you a sense of the timeline and time frame for what we're doing on this assignment. It's in 2 parts. The first part is to do some research and present that research as a Google slide presentation that you're going to embed into your WordPress site, so I can see as a Google slideshow, and I'll create a demo for that that'll be linked here as well. I have an optional reading that if you'd like to do, there's a PDF. This will give you a survey introduction to the idea of artists using photography, but also considering themselves standalone photographers. So the first part of this assignment is to choose that artist, do research, and create a presentation of their work that I'll detail what I think you should have in that presentation here in a minute. And then part 2 is to create a series of 5 to 7 final images that you're going to present and post onto your WordPress page as well. So you'll create a single WordPress page dedicated to your research and presentation, and then a second part will be the images created in a gallery format. So I'm not going to read through this text specifically. You can do that on your own, but in general, this is an approach of trying to figure out why artists use photography or use the technique of photo to create their work, but then also why there are also people who consider themselves to be photographers and not necessarily artists first, but photographers who make artwork as photography. So I want you to maybe read through this briefly, but in general, I want you to start thinking about artists having a methodology and photographers, so a process by which they choose subject matters, the style, the method, and the techniques, and their approach all having meaning and having been considered. So in your research and presentation, again, if you'd like to read, this will give you a nice primer for what I'm thinking about in general in terms of art. I know not all of you guys are art majors or planning to be art majors, so this is a bit specific to that, but if you're curious, I highly recommend it. For this, you're going to be looking at online resources, photo books. I highly recommend photo books, and thinking about how specifically people who make photo images are really drawn to the presentation of their work through the book format. That's something that I think is really important to acknowledge and understand. So it's something that I would push you to do, and I even create down here a link for instructions to use our interlibrary loan system called iShare. This will allow you to access a huge statewide network of library books that will most likely have many of the artists that are listed available in this project, that you can check out books, and they'll have them sent directly to Harper, and you can pick them up there. It's not required, and I understand that right now especially things are a little tricky, but it is something that I'd really advise you to do. Now, the directions for your presentation on your WordPress assignment page, I want you to identify a few things. So you're obviously going to identify an artist, and there's going to be a long list of artists that I'm going to show you here in a minute. But your research, I want you to identify a couple things. I want you to identify the form of the work of the artist that you're choosing and the content of their work. So keep in mind I define those things here, but I think it's really important to identify those things for us. I'd like you to also identify the technique. So are they using a camera? What kind of camera? Is it a large format? Is it film? Is it digital? Those kind of things I'd like you to see if you can find out. And then I want you to think about their working methodology. So does the artist start with an image that they want to find or make, or do they just take their camera with them everywhere they go and photograph whatever they come across? Okay, so there's a kind of calculated methodology an artist might take, or there's a more spontaneous. Now, I give you a couple tutorials here, one through Google support, the other is a YouTube tutorial on how to use Google slide presentations, and then I also have a link here for how to then, when you're finished, embed that into your WordPress site. These are visual artists, so I want you to give us as many visuals as possible. You also have the ability to embed and put videos, YouTube videos, directly into those slide presentations. So rather than just a link, you can actually have them embedded, much like I did on that earlier slide. Now, I might envision a few things that would be nice to have as part of these presentations, like an autobiography, a breakdown of their career, an overview of their work. So where did they study? Who did they study with? Did they participate in any type of genre of photography? Maybe a detailed description of a few of their select and significant works, and how that stuff was received and where was it shown. Those kind of things might be nice. It's optional to cite the references and resources or create a bibliography. I'm not super concerned with that in this course, but it is a nice resource to offer to other students in the course who are going to come across these presentations, all right? Now, I gave you a long list here of artists that I want you to choose from. These are all artists and photographers that I'd like you to use as a resource, and also specifically use because I think they're significant for the conversation around art and photography, all right? So choose from these. If you have someone that you think qualifies and is of significant interest to you, reach out to me and we'll talk about it. Now, the second part of this assignment is to create images. This one, I want you to create 5 to 7 final images and post them to that same WordPress page. At this point right now, we're transitioning into shooting in RAW format with our cameras. So we're no longer going to be shooting JPEG format images. We're going to shift into shooting RAW format images. And I've given you a demo here on how to change in your camera to that RAW format for people who have a general camera and you didn't check one out for me. But I also have one for the D3500, the Nikon, if you do have one of those cameras, and it specifically shows you how to do that on that Nikon. Now, I'm going to walk you through doing how you workflow raw images using Adobe Bridge and Camera Raw and Photoshop. And so this will be that demo video for that. And then there's a workflow PDF that we've already looked at that I reiterate here that takes you through those steps as well. So again, we're going to from this assignment forward, we're going to be using RAW format on our cameras and shooting in RAW format. Right? I think that covers just about everything. The final thing that I write here that I think is really important is I really, again, want to stress that you're not just creating the work of the artist that you're emulating, because I think of the emulation process as you being interested in the similar questions that photographer or artists are asking through their work, and you wanting to reinvent it or continue that conversation or that discourse by emulating their work, but not just creating their work and answering the same questions they've been posing. I want you to seek how to make it your own, okay? So if you have questions about that and you want to bounce anything off of me, please reach out. And again, this is your long 3 assignment, and look forward to seeing what you guys produce.